My name is Carmen Berry. I'm 33 years old. And this is the story of how my own family stole everything I worked for, then expected me to smile while they toasted toit. The ocean breeze felt different that day. Harper. Like it carried the weight of the past. I stood in front of the black iron gates of the Blake family's beach mansion, once affection called the Happy House. That name used to mean something. Now it tasted like salt and betrayal on my tongue. I leaned against my dusty sedan, its engine still warm after the 4-hour drive. The salty air whipped through my frizzy curls, and I caught a glimpse of myself in the car window. Tired eyes, cracked lips, but there was still a fire in me, one I hadn't felt in years. A voice drifted over the backyard hedge. "Oh wow, Carmen. You actually made it." My sister Madison's tone was honeyed with just the right amount of mockery. I stepped forward slowly, as if each step carried years of emotional debris I couldn't quite shake off. She was holding a crystal cocktail glass, laughing with a group of relatives I barely recognized anymore. Madison looked like a page from a fashion magazine, golden hair cascading in perfect waves, a silky dress clinging to her like it was tailored for a goddess. "Didn't think you'd show up," she said louder this time, drawing more attention. "Figured you'd be busy doing, I don't know, something low effort." I felt the familiar sting behind my eyes. My fingers clenched around my car keys, digging half-moons into my palm. I had promised myself I wouldn't cry in front of them again. Not after last time. The last time I was here, they laughed when I told them I'd been laid off. Deputy Financial Director at Crestwood International. Gone overnight after downsizing. Madison actually clinked glasses and said, "Maybe now you'll learn not to put all your eggs in one overpaid basket." I stepped inside. The air was thick with the smell of aged wine and the sound of clinking crystal. My mother stood center stage in the living room, her eyes glowing with pride, but not for me. Never for me. "Look at this," she beamed, raising a glass. "Our Madison is now a corporate manager." The room erupted in cheers. My father, standing beside her, wrapped his arm around Madison like she'd just won a Nobel Prize. I swallowed hard. "Mom, I just drove 4 hours to be here. Can we talk privately?" My father didn't even look at me. "Can't you see Madison is speaking? Don't ruin the moment, Carmen." I felt invisible. Madison sauntered over to me, her smugness oozing through every syllable. "Oh, almost forgot. Mom and Dad said I can move into your apartment." I blinked. "What?" "You know, the one you're renting. They said it's too much space for you alone and, well, they paid the deposit anyway. So technically," froze. "They used my money for that deposit." Madison's smile curled tighter. "They said they'd pay it back. I'm sure you'll manage without it, right? You always do." The world spun for a moment. I had worked 6 years to save up that $60,000. My future house fund. It was supposed to be my escape. My beginning. But they took it. Without asking. Without shame. My mother stepped closer, wine glass in hand. "Carmen, sweetheart, Madison needs space to focus on her new role. You'll figure something out. You always do." That phrase again. Like it was my personal curse. "You'll be fine." Well, not this time. I left the party without saying goodbye. No one stopped me. My shoes scraped against the gravel driveway, every step echoing louder than the laughter still spilling out from inside. I drove back to my apartment, the same one they were planning to hand over to Madison, and stood in the hallway staring at a cardboard box. It sat in front of my door like a silent threat. On top a note. "Please move your belongings out by Friday. Madison needs the room. Love, Mom." I choked on my breath. My fingers shook as I unlocked the door. My home, or what was left of it, felt colder now. Muller. Even the coffee maker let out a low groan as if exhausted by the drama. I sat on the couch, knees pulled to my chest. This was the lowest I had ever felt. Not because of the money. Not even the apartment. But because I finally realized something I'd tried to deny my whole life. I was never the daughter they wanted. A buzzing sound broke through the silence. My phone. Luke. My sister's ex. I stared at his name blinking on the screen. I hadn't heard from him in 3 years. Carmen. His voice was shaky. Can we meet? It's urgent. Market and Pine. I'll explain everything. 15 minutes later, I was sitting across from him in a corner booth at our old college hangout. Luke looked like he hadn't slept in days. It's about Madison, he said, eyes darting around. That car she's flaunting, the one she said the company gifted her? She didn't buy it with her own money. And it's not just the apartment deposit. What are you saying? She took out a $60,000 personal loan. In your name. Carmen, she forged your signature. My stomach turned to stone. You need to act fast, he said. And the worst part. Your parents helped her do it. I shot up from my seat. I couldn't breathe. Couldn't think. Couldn't believe that the people I used to call family were capable of this level of betrayal. When I got home, I found the box from the hallway shoved into the living room. This time I didn't cry. I opened my laptop. My hands moved faster than my mind could keep up. I wasn't sure what I was searching for. Legal advice. Financial recovery. Closure. But then I opened an email from my mother. The subject line stopped me cold. Family reunion this weekend. Madison in charge. I read the message twice, my pulse hammering. Due to limited seating, you won't be able to attend. Limited seating. Well, this wasn't about space. This was about erasure. They wanted to erase me. But I wasn't going to disappear quietly. Not this time. I didn't sleep that night. I sat at the tiny kitchen table of the apartment I was about to be evicted from, my phone beside me, unopened messages blinking like ghosts I refused to confront. I watched the city lights blink through my cracked window, a cup of cold coffee clutched in both hands like it might anchor me to something real. They had erased me. Not just from the beach house. Not just from my apartment. But from the very fabric of the family. They made sure Madison had everything. And me. I was the extra. The outsider. The afterthought. But they didn't know one thing. I had just hit the bottom. And the thing about rock bottom. It's solid enough to push off from. By morning, I knew exactly what I was going to do. I called the only person I still trusted. Lucas. We met freshman year in a college accounting course and stuck together ever since. He was the one who stayed up with me while I studied for my CPA exams, the one who flew cross-country just to watch me walk the stage at graduation when my parents didn't come. And now he was my financial advisor, sharp, strategic, and loyal to a fault. He picked up on the second ring. Carmen, I need you, I said. And I don't want to wait. There was a beat of silence. Then his voice softened. Tell me everything. We met later that day in his office downtown. Sleek, minimalist, with a wall of glass overlooking the city skyline. But it wasn't the decor that made me feel safe. It was Lucas. His presence grounded me. I told him everything. The forged loan. The stolen apartment. The email from my mother. He listened without interrupting, his jaw tightening as I spoke. When I finally finished, his eyes met mine with quiet fire. They stole your life, he said. But we're going to take it back. Started with a title search. He pulled up property records on the beach house. That sprawling white mansion with the blue tile roof. The place I'd helped repair more times than I could count. I had paid for the new roofing after the storm. For the plumbing when Madison clogged it with champagne corks. For the insurance when she set the kitchen on fire trying to flambe shrimp after 3 martinis. But my name was nowhere on the deed. Still, Lucas grinned. They're behind on their mortgage. 1 more month of default and it goes to public auction. My heart stuttered. They're selling it. No choice. They owe over $100,000. Madison tried applying for another loan in her own name, but she got denied. Bad credit and no assets. A twisted, quiet satisfaction crawled up my spine. They're bleeding, I whispered. And that's when you buy the house, Lucas said, tapping the keyboard. Through the shell real estate company you formed last month. I smiled slowly, the first real smile I'd managed in weeks. They won't even see it coming. The plan was in motion. Over the next few days, Lucas worked his magic. He handled the legal structuring, set up a holding company under a neutral name, and arranged for the purchase to go through as soon as the bank gave the green light. I signed the closing documents in silence, feeling like a ghost watching her past being buried and reborn. And just like that, the beach house that had been the site of every humiliation I'd suffered at their hands was mine. 3 weeks passed. I said nothing. Let them believe what they wanted. Let them host their little reunion in a house they no longer owned. Let them laugh in their ignorance. Until I was ready. That morning, I stood by my apartment window watching the sun rise as my phone buzzed again. It was Lucas. "They're out," he said. "The bank handed the keys to the new owner this morning." I was silent for a moment. "And the notice?" "Delivered. They've got 14 days to vacate." I hung up and stared at my reflection in the glass. I didn't look victorious. I looked exhausted, worn. But underneath it, there was a calm, unshakable resolve. It wasn't revenge I felt. Not yet. It was something deeper. Something colder. Justice. 3 months later everything changed. I stood in the mirrored conference room on the 32nd floor of the Westfield & Company Tower, the city of Los Angeles stretching beneath my feet like a map I had finally conquered. My title: International Vice President, Asia-Pacific Operations. In the span of 90 days, I'd gone from jobless to signing a $150 million merger with Richardson Financial Group. The headlines screamed my name. The same name my parents never once included in a holiday card. Carmen Berry, the woman who outsmarted the market. I stared at the magazine cover Lucas dropped on my desk. My photo. My handshake. My story. "You did it," Lucas said softly, watching me read. "I did," I murmured. "And now it's time they find out." He raised an eyebrow. "The beach house." He nodded. Lucas smiled. "Want me to be there when you tell them?" "No," I said, voice firm. "This one's mine." The reunion was scheduled for the following Sunday. They still thought it was their house. They still thought I didn't matter. So I decided to show up early. To welcome them properly. I wore a cream-colored dress. Heels that clicked on the polished floors like a judge's gavel. My hair was pulled back in a sleek bun, my pearl necklace catching the sunlight as it streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows. I stood in the foyer as Madison burst through the door, dragging a suitcase behind her. "Sis," she chirped, her eyes lighting up with fake surprise. "You're here too." Smiled. "Wouldn't miss it for the world." My parents entered behind her, my mother's eyes scanning the room like she owned it. She paused when she saw me. "Carmen," she said slowly. "What are you doing here?" I tilted my head. "Oh, just making sure the new guests are welcomed properly." Madison scoffed. "What are you talking about? This is my house." I pulled a folder from my coat pocket and held it out. "The deed says otherwise." My father took the folder and read in silence. My mother's hand flew to her mouth. Madison stood frozen, her wine glass slipping slightly in her grip. "You bought it," she whispered. "With the money you stole from me," I said, stepping forward, eyes locked on hers. "With the 6 years of savings you drained. With the apartment you took. And the dignity you tried to erase." My voice didn't waver. "And now," I said, placing the final stack of papers on the granite kitchen island. "Here are reservations at the downtown hotel for your family reunion. All expenses covered." Madison's face twisted. "You're a monster." "No," I said, smiling gently. "I'm the daughter you forgot was watching." She lunged forward, fury boiling over, but my mother caught her arm. Tears streamed down her face. "Carmen, how could you do this to us?" I looked at her, my heart cold but steady. "You did it to yourselves." They didn't move. My mother's wine glass trembled in her fingers. My father's face had gone a shade paler than I'd ever seen it, the color drained from it like the tide pulling back from the shore. Madison stood between them, shaking, her mouth opening and closing like a fish pulled from water. You can't do this, she stammered. You're not serious. I was never more serious in my life, I said quietly. I walked to the kitchen counter, where I'd placed the final piece of the truth, the notice to vacate. I tapped the top sheet with my fingernail, each tap sounding like a judge's gavel. You have 14 days. That's generous, considering everything. You're just doing this to humiliate us, my mother spat, finally finding her voice. I didn't flinch. I'm doing this because I own the house. 'Cause I bought it legally. Because when you used my name to fund Madison's lifestyle, you crossed a line. And you all laughed while I cried alone in a 7th-floor walk-up with a broken heater and mold in the ceiling. I didn't know about the loan, my father muttered, avoiding my gaze. You didn't ask either, I replied. You've never asked about my life unless it was to compare it to Madison's. Even now, you're not sorry for what you did. You're sorry you got caught. Madison turned on me, her voice rising. So what? You think this makes you better than us? You think money makes you right? I tilted my head, cold and steady. No. But the law does. And facts do. And this time, Madison, you lost. The silence that followed was thick with disbelief, like the air had been vacuumed out of the room. They weren't just shocked by what I had done. They were shattered by the fact that I had done it without them knowing. They had underestimated me. Again. Don't bother unpacking, I added, stepping past them toward the door. I've already contacted the hotel. Your rooms are ready. They have valet. I'm sure that's more your style. I didn't wait for a response. I walked out and let the door close behind me, the soft click sounding more satisfying than anything I'd ever heard. But the victory didn't feel as sweet as I thought it would. Back at my new high-rise apartment, I stared at the city from my window, the lights like embers against the night sky. I should have been celebrating. Champagne, music, relief. Instead, I felt hollow. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't even triumphant. I was tired. The kind of tired that settles into your bones and whispers, "You've won the battle, but you've lost something along the way." That night, my phone buzzed again. A message from my mother. "Carmen, I just saw the news. We need to talk. It's about Madison." I almost didn't respond. But something in her wording, the urgency, the use of Madison's name instead of another guilt-ridden family plea, made me pause. Texted back. "What happened?" Her reply came seconds later. "She's been fired. They found out she faked her degree. She's under investigation for the loan she took out in your name. We didn't know it had gone that far. Please meet me. Please." My stomach turned. I should have felt vindicated. Instead, all I felt was this awful, sickening pull in my chest. Like maybe the whole structure of my revenge was now collapsing under the weight of unintended consequences. Still, I agreed to meet her. We met at a cafe downtown the next afternoon. A quiet, sunlit place filled with the scent of fresh bread and espresso. My mother looked thinner. Her hair, once carefully styled into an immaculate chignon, was down and frizzy. She looked older, defeated. She didn't hug me. She didn't smile. She just sat, placed a worn leather box on the table, and pushed it toward me. "I didn't come to beg," she said. "I came to tell the truth." I stared at the box, then back at her. "Truth now? After everything?" She nodded. "I was wrong, Carmen. Not just about the money. About you." Her voice cracked, but she pressed on. "You were always the responsible one. The one who took care of everyone, including Madison. I let that become an expectation. And when you finally fell, I didn't know how to support you without feeling like I'd failed." I stayed silent. She continued. "Madison needed so much. I thought, if I didn't give her everything, she'd fall apart. But I didn't see what it was costing you. And now?" asked coldly. She opened the box. Inside were pieces of my childhood. Letters I'd written her. Photos of me at dance recitals. The acceptance letter to Crestwood University that I'd framed and mailed to her the day I got in. "I kept everything," she whispered. "Even when I pretended not to care. Even when I pretended you were the strong one who didn't need love." My eyes stung, but I didn't cry. "I'm not asking for forgiveness," she said. "I'm asking for a chance. Not for me, but for Madison. She's not handling this well. She's spiraling. And now you want me to save her," I said bitterly. "She respects you," she said. "Even if she'll never admit it. She needs a wake-up call. And I think maybe you're the only one she'll hear it from." I sat back in my chair and stared at the ceiling for a long time. How do you help someone who destroyed you? How do you reach for a bridge you spent years watching them burn? I didn't have an answer. But I said, "I'll talk to her. Once." My mother looked like she'd aged 10 years from the relief. She reached for my hand, but I pulled it away. Not to hurt her, but because I wasn't ready. "Carmen," she said, eyes filled with tears. "I see you now. I finally see you." I nodded, then stood and walked away. The next morning I got a call from my office receptionist. "There's someone here to see you. Says her name is Madison Berry." I told them to send her up. When Madison entered, she looked nothing like the smug, cackling version of herself that had greeted me at the beach house just months ago. Her clothes were wrinkled, her hair in a messy bun, her face puffy from crying. "You came," I said, not rising from my desk. She dropped into the seat across from me, her voice hoarse. "I have nothing left." "I know," I said, meeting her eyes. "I screwed up, Carmen. I screwed up so badly I don't know where to begin. Forged your name. I lied to everyone. I made a mess of your life, and now I've made one of mine." She started crying, silent, uncontrollable sobs that made my throat tighten. I let her cry. And then I said, "Get up." She looked at me, stunned. "You want a second chance?" "Yes. I'll give you one. But only one." She wiped her face. What do I have to do?" "You work for me. Entry level. No favors. No shortcuts. You earn everything. And if you ever lie to me again, we're done. For good." Madison nodded frantically. "I will. Swear. I'll work hard. I'll prove myself." I stood and extended my hand. "Then let's see who you really are." As she left, I looked out my office window. Maybe, just maybe, this story wasn't only about revenge anymore. Maybe it was about reclamation. Of my power. My worth. My peace. And now, the next chapter was about to begin. Hong Kong was unlike anything I'd ever experienced. The city didn't sleep. The streets pulsed with life. Neon signs glowing above noodle stalls and luxury boutiques. Businessmen in tailored suits brushing shoulders with street vendors. It was fast, loud, unapologetically alive. And in the heart of it all, high above the chaos, was my new home. The apartment Westfield provided was nothing short of stunning. A glass-walled penthouse with a panoramic view of Victoria Harbour. At night, the water sparkled like spilled diamonds. Ferries zipping back and forth like fireflies. But even with the view, even with my name on the door of the Westfield and Company, Asia-Pacific headquarters, something gnawed at me. A quiet, aching kind of emptiness. I had everything I used to pray for, and yet there were still shadows from the past, lingering like smoke. Sometimes late at night, I'd catch myself reaching for my phone, fingers hovering over Madison's name, wondering if she was still working hard, if she'd stumbled, if she missed me. But I never hit dial. Until one evening my phone buzzed. "Madison Berry is calling." I stared at the screen for several seconds before answering. "Hello, sis." Her voice was cautious, small. "I didn't know if you'd pick up." I almost didn't. There was a pause on the other end. Then, I just wanted to say, "Got hired. As a marketing assistant. Real job. Real interview. No lies this time." I leaned against the glass window, watching the city blink below. "You did it on your own." "Yes," she said. "First paycheck's coming next week. I even found a tiny apartment. It's not much, but it's mine." Smiled just a little. "That's what I wanted for you. All along." Another pause. Then, "Are you still angry with me?" Thought about it. About everything she'd done. The lies, the stolen apartment, the loan in my name. I was, I said. For a long time. But holding on to that anger only poisoned me. It didn't fix anything. Oh, I forgive you. Madison's breath hitched. Really? With one condition. Anything. You stand on your own 2 feet. No more running to Mom. No more shortcuts. If I hear you've slipped back into old habits, that door closes again. Understand? I do, she said quietly. I won't let you down. I didn't say I believed her. But deep down a part of me wanted to. Later that night I sat on the balcony with a glass of wine, thinking of the girl I used to be. The one who cried in silence on the 7th floor of that moldy apartment, abandoned by the very people she thought loved her most. That girl had grown up. She had crossed oceans, rebuilt her name, and claimed her power. But even as I looked down on a city of millions, I still couldn't forget where I came from, or who I had left behind. A few weeks later, I received an unexpected visitor. I was in a meeting when the receptionist buzzed in. "There's a woman here. Says she's your mother." I nearly dropped my pen. She flew across the world. I stepped out into the lobby, heart pounding, and there she was. Wearing a simple navy dress, no pearls, no makeup. Her hair was pinned back plainly. Her hands clutching the strap of her handbag like a child holding a security blanket. "Carmen," she whispered, eyes glassy with unshed tears. I didn't say anything. "I know I have no right to be here," she said, voice trembling. "But I had to see you. In person. I needed to tell you." Her voice broke. I waited. I was wrong. See it now. I let you carry everything. The weight. The pressure. The blame. And I clung to Madison because I was scared. She was fragile, but you, she looked at me, eyes brimming. You were strong. So I punished you for it. I swallowed hard. I'm not asking you to forget. Just, let me try to make things right. Whatever that means. However long it takes. I looked at her for a long moment. Then gestured toward the empty bench by the fountain in the lobby. Let's talk. We sat for over an hour. She told me how she had started going to therapy. How she'd been volunteering at a youth shelter, helping young women get back on their feet. How she had written apology letters she never sent. To me, to my father, even to Madison. She wasn't the same woman who once kicked me out of the beach house. But trust takes more than words. I'm not ready to welcome you in, I said as we stood to leave. But I'll keep the door unlocked. She nodded, wiping her eyes. That's more than I deserve. Later that week, a package arrived at my Hong Kong apartment. It was from Madison. Inside, a photo of her new apartment. Modest but clean and bright, and a simple note. This one's all mine. I hope one day you'll come visit. M. I set the note on my nightstand and stared at it for a long time. And then I picked up my phone and typed. I'll be waiting for that day. Something shifted inside me. Not closure. Not yet. But hope. The kind I hadn't felt in years. The days in Hong Kong passed with a strange rhythm. Work, reports, meetings, rooftop events, champagne toasts with CEOs whose names I never knew a year ago. But the nights were quiet. Sometimes too quiet. I had everything I once thought I needed, respect, power, wealth. But sometimes I'd sit in the darkness of my apartment, sipping tea, and ask myself a question I hadn't dared voice in years. If they had just loved me like I needed, would I have wanted any of this? The answer was complicated. Because now that I had it all, the power, the title, the apartment, the view, I realized that my real hunger had never been for success. It had been for recognition. I didn't want to crush my family. I wanted them to see me. Not as the strong one. Not as the reliable backup plan. Not as the afterthought to Madison's chaos. But as Carmen. Just Carmen. And ironically, it wasn't until I took everything back, the house, the dignity, the control, that they finally did. 1 year to the day after I arrived in Hong Kong, Lucas flew in for the company's Asia Gala. He hadn't changed. Still effortlessly charming, still the one person who saw through all my armor. He walked into my office holding a sleek black gift bag. What's this? I asked, arching a brow. He grinned and set it on the desk. Open it. Inside was a framed photo. Me standing on the rooftop of the Westfield building, looking out over the harbor. Taken without my knowledge. I took it last month when you weren't paying attention, he said. Because you never let yourself be proud. And I figured you needed to see what we see. I stared at it. Not just the city behind me, but the version of myself in the photo. Back straight. Chin lifted. Unapologetic. That wasn't the girl they laughed at in the beach house. That was someone reborn. You're not alone anymore, Lucas added gently. You've built a family here, a real one. People who believe in you. I nodded, blinking away a sudden sting in my eyes. I know. And I'm finally starting to believe it too. That night I returned home, exhausted but full. The kind of full that doesn't come from food or titles or applause. The kind that comes from healing. I sat on my couch and opened the old box my mother had given me the day she visited. Inside were my childhood drawings, old letters I thought she'd thrown away, and a bracelet. The bracelet my father had given me on my 18th birthday. Silver, delicate, engraved with the words, "Be brave, Carmen." Funny. He hadn't said those words out loud since I was a teenager, but he had once believed in me. Maybe, buried under the silence, he still did. My phone buzzed. Video call from Madison. I hesitated and then answered. She appeared on screen sitting on the floor of her modest apartment, surrounded by unpacked boxes. "You redecorating again?" I asked, teasing lightly. Madison grinned. "First paycheck from my new job. Got myself a second-hand coffee table. And a couch that doesn't smell like cat pee." I laughed, really laughed, for the first time in weeks. She looked at me softer now. "I just wanted to say thank you again," she said. "I know I say it a lot, but it matters. You didn't have to give me a second chance. You gave it to yourself," I replied. "I just opened the door." She looked down, then back up at me. "I hope one day we can sit down, have tea, and talk like sisters. Really talk." I swallowed hard. "I hope for that too." And I meant it. The next morning I walked down to the harbor before sunrise. I ordered a hot latte from the corner cafe and took my usual seat by the water. Hong Kong was waking up slowly, lights blinking on in the high-rises, delivery scooters buzzing down the alleyways. I pulled out my phone and typed a message to my mother. "I hope you're doing well. Whenever you're ready, come visit me. I'll show you everything. The door's still open." Pause. Then hit send. A few minutes later, a reply appeared. "I'd love that, Carmen. More than anything." I smiled and leaned back, watching the sunlight stretch across the harbor like a promise. I wasn't the same woman who arrived here with revenge burning in her chest. I was rebuilding. Not just my name, but my heart. And this time I wasn't doing it alone. A year and a half had passed since I left Los Angeles. Felt like another lifetime now. From the high balcony of my apartment in Hong Kong, I could see the harbor stretching endlessly before me, a view I never took for granted. I stood with a cup of tea in my hand, letting the morning breeze carry away the last fragments of doubt I still carried. 'Cause I had made it. Not just professionally, but emotionally. I had reclaimed my name, my dignity, my identity. And more importantly, I had started forgiving. My phone buzzed on the kitchen counter. Message from Madison. Got promoted to junior marketing associate. My first project launches next week. Want to see the pitch deck? I laughed softly, then typed back. Send it over. And Madison, "I'm proud of you." Her reply was almost immediate. "Thanks, sis. That means more than you know." That afternoon, as I wrapped up quarterly reporting with the regional finance team, my assistant walked in. "There's someone here to see you. No appointment. Name?" She smiled. She said to just call her mom. Froze. And then I nodded. "Send her in." My mother entered the room slowly, her steps uncertain, but her eyes steady. She wore a simple cream blouse, no jewelry, no drama. Just her. "I didn't want to come without calling," she said, standing by the door. "But I was afraid if I asked you'd say no." I rose to my feet. You can always ask now. She smiled faintly. That's more than I deserve. We sat across from each other at the small table by the window. She pulled out a leather-bound folder. I wanted to show you something. Inside were printed copies of newsletters, fundraising letters, and photographs. She'd started a non-profit, the Berry Foundation for Women in Transition, focused on supporting young women leaving difficult home situations. I thought about you, she said, voice thick. About how alone you must have felt. About all the things I never said. I couldn't go back and change what I did to you, Carmen. But maybe I could make sure someone else never felt that way again. I felt my throat tighten. The mother who once defended Madison no matter the damage, was sitting here, not asking for forgiveness, but living in repentance. I'm proud of you, I whispered, the words tasting foreign on my tongue but real. Tears welled in her eyes. You don't know what that means to me. She stayed in Hong Kong for a week. We didn't try to make up for lost years. We just started fresh. And for the first time in my adult life, I had a mother who saw me. Truly saw me. On her last night, we sat on the rooftop of my building watching the skyline glitter. Thank you for opening the door, she said softly. I looked at her and smiled. It's up to you to keep walking through it. She nodded, and I knew she would. A month later, I received a video call from Madison. She was standing in her small, cozy apartment, this time with a big, cheesy grin on her face. Guess what? What? I asked, sipping my tea. I got offered a team lead position. My eyes widened. Already? They said my numbers are some of the highest on the floor, she said proudly. And I did it myself. No help. No lies. Just me. Smiled. I never doubted you could. Her expression grew serious. I want to visit Hong Kong. Can I? Paused. Then nodded. Yes, you can. The next morning I stood by the harbor again, watching a new ship come in, sleek, tall, steady. Like me. Like my journey. Because this story wasn't just about revenge. It was about rediscovery. About finding my worth in the rubble of what they tried to destroy. About letting go of hate and choosing something stronger, peace. As I turned to head back to my office, I received one last message from Madison. Photo. A framed quote hanging on her wall. Success is the best revenge, but peace is the real victory. Smiled. Maybe she finally understood. And maybe, just maybe, we were becoming sisters again. Not the kind bound by blood, but the kind built through storms, fire, and forgiveness. Carmen Berry's story isn't just about reclaiming what was stolen. It's about learning that true strength comes not from vengeance, but from knowing your worth, and choosing peace when you finally have the power to destroy. She didn't just win. She grew. And in doing so, she changed not only her future, but the hearts of those who had once broken her. What do you think? Would you have forgiven Madison and her mother? Or walked away for good? Share your thoughts in the comments. And if this story moved you, subscribe to Revenge Echoes, where stories speak louder than revenge.